Hey, we're ready. It's October 4th, 2019. We're at American University celebrating the Golden Eagles 50th reunion. And could you tell us your name?
Pamela Beardsley.
And as I understand it, you were on campus in 1969.
I was on campus only as a visitor. Actually, at that time, I was working at the American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees. But I came in 1965.
Okay.
So if I matriculated normally, I would have graduated in 69.
And could you tell us a kind of memorable experience that you had at American University that's maybe kind of shaped your future life?
Well, there were many, of course, but I will focus on 1970. I came back to. I worked for 2 years at the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees from '66 for 2 years or so, during which maybe it was longer because they had a student strike here. I did come over, and of course I had a lot of friends from American University and ended up living near DuPont Circle with a number of them. But at some point, maybe it was '69, I came back in the fall and I worked at the economics department, which was in Roper Hall. I don't know if that building is still here. It was a 2-story brick building. And then I part-time took classes part-time at the university. And during that time, I was involved with a small group of people that we tried to do political education around issues that were geopolitical and also related specifically to American University. And the first one that was like that had to do with a continuing education program that started and was funded by the federal government for law enforcement education. And it had the purpose of giving bachelor's degrees to police officers who would come on campus after work. And this was somewhat controversial because back in those days, now we've had this experience in the modern era of many police officers shooting civilians, particularly African American civilians. But this was just totally normal in DC in the 60s when I lived here. Every year, at least, about 20 people were shot. It was quite a routine event, to the extent that one time, the one that I remember vividly was back then, the heart of the African American community, political community, was 14th and U, and the SCLC and SNCC had their headquarters there. And a African American man who was jaywalking on 14th was actually murdered by a police officer for jaywalking. So it was that type of tension existed, and this is also after Martin Luther King's assassination, in which really changed the whole feeling of the town, and it was much more tense after that. So we were offering police training, police officers. American University did offer a bachelor program for part-time police officers. When at that time there was no public university in Washington, D.C., so there was no inexpensive public state, college for African Americans or any other citizens of Washington, D.C. So we did a lot of research. We were in contact. We went over to we did some rallies and other activities, but we started researching this whole continuing education department. This was something we hadn't been really familiar with. And by the end of the semester in 1970, which was a big year because that's when the United States invaded Cambodia, so there were huge protests here in Washington. And then there was the Penn State, there were murders at two universities. First at a black school and a university in South Carolina. I think one of the Carolinas, Orange, and several people were killed. And then there was later the one that got a lot of publicity at Kent State. But by the time that was all happening, by the time that graduation ceremony was going to happen, we had this huge protest here at Ward Circle. We shut down traffic, and there was, a lot of the campus got gassed by the police. Huge police presence, and that was a big deal. And but our research showed that there was actually this shadow university of American University that we were totally unaware of. That American University actually provided graduate and programs at many government institutions, the Pentagon, the CIA, a lot of, controversial government bureaus, whatever they're called, and was sometimes there would be professors from AU actually involved in those programs, but a lot of times it was basically staff from those institutions that was doing the teaching, and they were getting degrees, American University degrees. Now, when I applied, and when you applied back then, we used to look, I don't know if people still do, there would be reports on universities, how many admissions, how many graduates, how many degrees offered. But those degrees weren't included in that kind of reckoning. And by the time the 1970 graduation took place, there were police guarding the campus. It was plastered with, the whole place was plastered with anti-war and other political kinds of messaging. It was just like, it was such a crazy feel. It was so different from any graduation ceremony you ever attended. And then at that point, I decided to go to work for the National Anti-War Organization and organize the May Day events that occurred in 1979. So it was a very dramatic and, interesting time.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. I really appreciate it.